I'm Captain Sarah Herard. Today I'm going to walk you through how to write a resume. Before we get started, I'll give you a brief background of my experience writing resumes. I've been working in the maritime industry for about 13 years. Much of the work I have done has been seasonal or contract work. This means I always need to keep my resume updated and ready for the next potential employer. I try to keep my resume updated so that when I apply for a job, all I need to do is personalize my resume for the particular position I'm applying for. Along the way, I have learned some tricks from reading online tutorials and asking friends and family to proofread. I recommend you spend time doing the same. The advice I'm sharing today is based on what's worked for me, as well as recommendations from various online resume writing tutorials. Let's look at a sample resume first. I found this example online. It's straightforward and easy to read. At the top, there's a brief section titled Career Objective. I've also seen this section titled Summary or simply Objective. You can use this section to describe yourself professionally or to explain what you're looking for in a new position. Consider personalizing this section to the particular employer you're applying to. This resume used subject headings Skills, Work History, and Education. Depending on which area you want to highlight most, you can reorder your sections. For example, if you're applying to work on a tugboat, list your skills or work experience before listing academic qualifications, because the skills and experience are more directly related to the position you are applying for. If you are applying to work for an educational program aboard a tall ship, consider moving your education background to the top in order to showcase your academic experience. We will come back to this sample resume at the end, but now let's spend some more time going over how to list education experiences. If you're a seasoned professional mariner, your education should go after your work experience. However, if you have just completed school or another training program such as this OS training program, consider putting your education experience near the top of your resume. You should list your education in reverse chronological order. That means list whatever you did most recently first. For you as Sea School cadets, this would mean you put your OS training first and then any other degrees or education following. If you have a college degree, you don't need to list your high school background. Here are a few examples of what to share and how to present it. You can see that the date and program is listed, and below that is the school and geographic location. You could also reverse the order that you put this information. For example, I like to showcase the school I went to, University of Michigan, and downplay the subject of my major, so I put sociology on the second line. Most employers don't care about your GPA, so unless you have recently graduated from college or high school and want to feature your rockstar GPA, you can leave it off your resume. Next, let's talk about work experience. Work experience should also be listed in reverse chronological order, so list your most recent position first. It is important to show that you've been employed or in school or training without unexplained gaps. If you do have gaps in your employment, be prepared to answer questions about what you were doing in this undocumented time. For each work experience, you'll want to give the job title, company name, and dates you were employed there. List the dates as month and year, not just year. If you worked at one company in more than one position, you can list each position under the company and date heading. Consider using bullet points to organize your responsibilities and skills that you used at the position. Share information that's relevant to the new position that you're applying for. This means that your resume won't be a boilerplate that you could submit to anyone. You should be crafting it to meet the objectives of a specific job posting. Here's an example from my resume. You can see that I put my job title, Able Seaman, the vessel I sailed on, and the dates I worked there. Then I listed a few things about the job. In this case, I was trying to showcase my experience sailing internationally and my experience dealing with emergencies. Now we'll move on to talking about your contact information. The example resume didn't include contact information, but yours will need to. This should be listed at the top of your resume. Here's a snapshot of the top of my resume. At the very top, I put my full name, then my email address, mailing address, and phone number. You do not need to list your mailing address. Email is sufficient. I like to list my mailing address so people know where I am local to. A reason you might not want to list your mailing address is if you don't want to be excluded from consideration for a job because you live far away from it. Let's cover a few etiquette details about the email address you use. If you have a work email address right now, don't use it to apply for a new job. These days, some email providers are considered professional and others are not. If you're not sure about yours, you can do an internet search. This advice is geared towards the professional white-collar work world, but it's reasonable advice nonetheless. On that note, avoid using email addresses that you made in high school that could cause, at best, a future employer to have an awkward first impression of you, and at worst, to throw your application away. This is a good reminder to take a look at your social media accounts to make sure that there is nothing that could embarrass you. Employers will often surf social media or ask friends to look up applicants in order to get a better sense of the person. Now we're going to move on to skills, interests, and hobbies. First off, you should work to sprinkle your skills throughout your resume, such as your work experience section. You can create a skills section, as well as other sections for interests and hobbies if you have space. This lets the potential employer get a better sense of who you are. Other things you might want to showcase are awards and honors, extracurricular activities if you have just graduated from college, certificates and licenses, languages, hobbies, etc. If I'm applying to a nonprofit organization where I might be responsible for getting grant funding, I'll list grant awards I've received. When I recently applied to drive a whale watching boat, however, I left those off my resume. I always include my first aid training in either my skills or certificate section. Even basic first aid and CPR is valuable training that many employers require. We've covered a lot of ground here. Let's go over a few suggestions for formatting and reviewing your resume. Use a readable font such as one listed here. Keep everything to the same size font, except for your name at the top if you wish to make that larger. Justify your text to the left side of the page to make it easy for the reader to follow. Use bold, caps, and italics to note headings and subheadings, but keep this standard throughout the page. A helpful tool to building bullet points for your work experience is to make each bullet point include an action verb, specific task, and quantitative item. Here is an example. Keep your font size and margins reasonable. The classic resume is one page, but if you need 2 pages to show your relevant experience, you can go for it. If you're close to 1 page, you can try to slim down your document by cutting hobbies or other optional topics. Proofread your resume multiple times. An employer will not be impressed with a sloppy resume. I've had many resumes of deckhands put on my desk before, and I will put the messy resumes at the bottom of the pile because my gut instinct is if you don't have the dedication to proofread your resume, how reliable are you as an employee? I'm sure that's pretty common for employers to do. I also recommend that you get someone else to proofread your resume. It can be a friend, parent, partner, or shipmate. When you save your resume to send off, save it as a PDF. This preserves the formatting that you worked hard to choose. Word documents opened on a different computer can lose their formatting, which would be unfortunate. Make sure to save your resume with your name in the title, so that it's easy for people to find in their downloads folder. It will get lost quickly if you just title it Resume. Now let's go back to the sample resume. Take a look at where the topic headers are, how bold font is used, and what some of the action words are. What would you do the same as this resume? What would you do differently? Good luck as you create your first resume or revise a resume that you already have on file. Thank you for watching this video.